Lunchtime was every second grader's favorite part of the day, and I was no different. Every day at 11 o'clock, my entire class would grab our lunchboxes out of our cubbies and scamper to the cafeteria. But for weeks, I hadn't felt the same excitement I once had. I no longer looked forward to the delicacy that was my mother's food. For the past few months, the other kids in my second grade class had been less than kind about the lunch that I ate. They ridiculed the way it looked and sneered at its smell. They were completely and utterly disgusted by the alien food that was rice and curry. I wish I could say that I had ignored them and continued eating my delicious food. But I gave in very quickly. I begged my mother to pack me the sandwiches that every other kid took to school. She was confused as to why I refused to eat the food that I had loved a few short weeks ago, but she gave in to my pleas and began packing me sandwiches. And so, I trudged to the cafeteria and pulled out my tinfoil-wrapped egg salad sandwich. 2 soggy slices of white bread encapsulating a mixture of hard-boiled eggs, mayonnaise, and mustard. I looked around me, wondering if any of my peers would comment on its appearance or smell. No one did. I hated that egg salad sandwich with a burning passion, from the very first sniff. I refused to eat a single bite of it. Instead, I took the food my mother had made for me with love and threw it straight into the trash. Sorry, Mom. By the end of the day, I was starving. But when my mother asked me if I had enjoyed the sandwich, I plastered a smile onto my face and told her that I had loved it. Going hungry was better than being laughed at. Every day, I got the same soggy egg salad sandwich, and every day, I threw it away. For months, I exchanged my favorite food for a respite from my classmates' teasing. The words of others changed something I had once loved into something that I was now ashamed of. Now, I am not condemning those little boys and girls that made fun of my lunch. To all young children, different means weird and unknown means freakish. We've all grown from the simple insults of our youth. But the thoughts of these elementary schoolers reflect a larger societal idea. The idea that we all have to eat the same, dress the same, be the same. The idea that those who do not conform must be condemned. I am Asian American. I am my parents' beliefs and expectations, and I am my ideas and opinions. Neither aspect can be shunned. And yet, I did try. I felt ashamed of the food my family cooked and ate. I succumbed to the pressure of my peers to abandon a part of what made me me. This pressure to conform is noticed by all people of color in the United States. The lunchbox bullying faced by young Asian children is only the start. There are countless other examples. Employers often force Black women to change their natural hair under the guise of professionalism. Indigenous Americans have been discouraged from expressing their own culture through clothing and music for decades. These occurrences are all effects of the belief that an individual who does not adhere to the perceived norm must make an effort to resemble the common society. This belief is rooted in the acceptance and normalization of cultural assimilation. Cultural assimilation is defined as the process in which a minority group comes to resemble the society's majority group. They begin to adopt the values, beliefs, and behaviors of this majority. And this assimilation is not a small-scale matter. It does not just affect foolish school children. In the age of rapid technological advancement and common access to international travel, human beings all over the world now regularly interact with and influence each other. Ideas and beliefs can be shared to millions in an instant. This cultural globalization has led to widespread similarities within humanity that were never present before. Think of any foreign country. In that country, there are countless people that you have never met that have seen and experienced the same media that you have, that now share ideas with you. You have far more in common with them than your grandparents ever had with their grandparents. Your grandchildren will have far more in common with their grandchildren than you now have with them. This trend of globalization has inflated exponentially in recent years, and it will continue to do so. The question is this globalization truly negative? Is widespread cultural assimilation a threat to diversity? I myself have just attested that it caused a little girl to forgo a part of her own culture in order to conform to the norm. But there is far more depth to the idea of assimilation. It cannot be considered solely negative. On an individual level, I believe that assimilation is neither positive nor negative. It is the perfect neutral. It is a choice that is personal to each individual. In the United States, an immigrant may choose to communicate mainly using English rather than their first language in order to get an education or apply for a job. They may go by a westernized version of their true name to avoid constant mispronunciation. They may celebrate American holidays over the ones they celebrated as a kid because they don't get a day off of work on those days. These choices have no moral weight. They are simply decisions made to aid life in a society with an American-dominated culture. But many people have begun to expect assimilation. They equate the adoption of American norms to the rejection of the original culture and belief. That this rejection is a prerequisite to living and working in the US. Choices that were made solely to simplify everyday life become political statements at the center of vicious debate. People who choose to assimilate themselves rarely neglect their culture in its entirety. They often embrace the aspects of American culture that aid them in their work and life, while continuing to cherish the aspects of their own culture that matter the most to them. We aim to find our own perfect balance between conforming for convenience and taking pride in our traditions. However, those that believe that only one dominant culture can exist and be respected disrupt this balance. They push for complete absorption into US society at the expense of other cultures. Thanks to them, the smallest of decisions become politicized debates. The little kid that just brought Chinese food to lunch became a news story. The black woman who wore her natural hair to work became the figurehead for a political statement rather than an ordinary person who made a simple stylistic choice. Eating that egg salad sandwich was never the true problem. Choosing to eat food that was not Indian was not a sign that I was any less Indian. The problem was that I did not make that choice through my own free will and preferences. I was pressured into conforming, and I did. The intention behind assimilation makes all the difference. The conversation of assimilation has been directed towards people of color for far too long. Encouraging us to retain and take pride in our culture is great, but it doesn't solve the actual problem. It is those who pressure us to assimilate far more than we ever intended to who cause the real problems. It becomes very difficult to find a good middle ground between the majority culture and your own when others deem your culture to be less worthy. Turning the conversation towards the true thieves of culture will bring us all one step closer to finding that perfect balance between conformity and culture. Thank you.